Yo, growing a business is kind of tricky right now. Supply chains are squeezed, tariffs and trade policies are dynamic, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. You need clarity to come out on top. Without it, you risk falling behind. If only you could hop in the DeLorean and see the future, right? Thankfully, there's NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite has real-time forecasting to help you move ahead with confidence. This is your AI-powered business management suite and the #1 cloud ERP. Trusted by over 42,000 businesses, NetSuite brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. And with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. You spent months building towards launch day, but when the clock hits 0, your site crashes. Bots swarm, and loyal fans rage on Reddit. That's not good. Fanfare was built to stop that. Fanfare is the drop platform made for high-pressure moments, stampede-proof infrastructure, verified waitlists, and bot filters that actually work. Instead of refunds and rage, you get retention and revenue. And that sounds great to me. Your next launch shouldn't be a gamble. Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook and learn how to bulletproof your drop at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, that's fanfare.io/playbook.
Welcome to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, where it's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host. He's reminded of how dorky and awkward he was as a teen because he has a teenager himself now. Pat Flynn.
This is the story of a computer that's given me a headache for the last couple of years that has come to a tremendous end. Just today, actually, which is why it's fresh in my mind, and I wanted to tell you this story. So 2 years ago, I got a brand new PC. This PC is called a Corsair One, and this was a top-of-the-line gaming PC that I got for my son and I to play Fortnite and Overwatch and some other games on. It was amazing. It is super fast. It held all the games really well, and it provided a lot of good times for Keone and I. And then 6 months later, when using this PC, the device had asked me to update my drivers. And if you're at all familiar with the PC and how it works, you know that one single update or one single change can just bust the whole system. And that's exactly what happened. I updated the driver just like it asked me to, and I rebooted just like it asked me to. And while it was rebooting, it rebooted again. And I said, that's weird. So I waited for it to go through its usual cycle. The same point, maybe 12, 13 seconds later, after it started over, it shut down and restarted again. Now, this isn't my first rodeo with PCs. In fact, I used to be a PC person before I was a Mac person. So I tried some of the tricks that I knew from back in the day, like holding F8 so it could go into safe mode and I could adjust a few things and head back into Windows and see if that would work. And so, yes, I was able to get into safe mode. And as soon as I rebooted from there, same thing happened. Just this recycled reboot was happening over and over and over again. I went into the BIOS, which you don't need to know what that means if you don't, but I went in there, updated a few things, and it didn't work. So I was stuck in this loop where I couldn't do anything. So I emailed support for Corsair, and they suggested some things, some stuff that I had already done, and they said if I could restore back to an earlier point, then I might be able to essentially time travel back to before when I updated that driver, and hopefully the computer would work. So I went into the computer and went into safe mode and went into advanced and then decided, okay, restore from earlier point. Cool. Let's see what earlier points there are that are available. There were none. For some reason, my computer was not capturing restoration points prior to this install. So that was shot. Now, unfortunately, I just couldn't do anything. And so I let the computer sit, and I let it sit, and I let it sit, and then I let it sit. A year goes by. It's just collecting dust at this point. And I end up getting my son a MacBook for school, so he's using that computer now. And so it's kind of like, well, I have a MacBook for my work. This was supposed to be our gaming PC. He's playing Minecraft, which could be done on this MacBook Pro anyway. So he didn't really have a need for, nor did I have a need for this PC. Well, it is winter break now here in the Flynn household. And one thing that we love to do on winter break is game with each other, especially my son and I. But unfortunately, the games that I wanted to play with him required two separate PCs, these multiplayer games like Overwatch or Fortnite or those kinds of things. So he had his setup. He had a setup that was fine. And I had my PC that wasn't working. So I said, you know what? I'm going to fire this up and see what happens. And lo and behold, I fire it up. And 12 seconds later, it reboots again. And I said, you know what? I've tried taking care of this. I remember what that was like. I'm just going to go to somebody who knows what they're doing. So I go to Yelp, which is where I often go when I have some issues that I don't know how to take care of myself. I find a reputable computer repairman. I text him through Yelp at 11:48 p.m., and he actually texts back immediately, which was just really interesting. But I said, hey, or it actually said, call me. I was like, I'm not going to call you at midnight, but I will call you tomorrow morning. So I called him in the next morning, and his name was John. And he said, hey, what's the problem? And I told him the problem. He said, hey, I can fix that. We can do a clean, like, do you have any data on there that you really need to try to save? And I said, no. And he said, great, this will be super easy. So I drop off the computer at his house, and he says, hey, you could pick it up at 3 p.m. This was at 11 a.m. So 5 hours later, not bad. So I come back to his house at 3 p.m., and he says, hey, I haven't fixed it yet. And I said, well, you could have texted that to me before I drove 20 minutes to your place, but okay. And then he decided to try more experiments with this computer while I was there standing over him in his home. He had asked me to come pick up the computer at his home because it was winter break for him in his office, but he was still doing some side work. And so I went through a back door of a house, felt like I was sneaking in. He was like, hey, Pat, I'm back here. And it was like through his kitchen, through his living room, and there he was in his little office tinkering with my computer. And he had a monitor set up, and he was showing me some stuff. And an hour and a half later, after random conversations, after a cat was purring at me maybe half the time, after his son came in and just wanted to know if they were going to go to the movies or not, an hour and a half went by. He said, you know what, Pat, I'm going to tinker it for a little bit longer tonight. You won't have to pay me, but I'm going to work on it, and I'll get it back to you tomorrow. So I go to bed, and I wake up, and I have a text. As I'm waking up, I see it. I read it. It says, Pat, I fixed it. It works. It doesn't reboot anymore. And then I end up going over to his place to pick up the PC, and I take my kids and my wife with me because we're going to head to the mall to do some shopping. And my kids, my wife are sitting in the driveway to his house. I sneak around the back just like I'm supposed to, head into the house, cross the kitchen, cross the living room, see him there. He's showing me some stuff, and he says, look, it hasn't rebooted. Here is a fireplace from YouTube that's been playing for 2 hours, and it seems to work now. So I Venmo him $125. Okay. And as he is exiting Windows, he says, okay, well, I got to just update this real quick, because when you finish with your PC, sometimes instead of shutting down, it updates, so it's ready the next time. And so I'm looking at the update, and it says 1%. A minute later, it says 5%. A minute later, it says 8%. It is going really slow. All while John's continuing to tell me about what the issue was in a language that I did not understand. Meanwhile, my wife sends me a text, says, hey, where are you? Are you okay? And I said, yes, John is telling me things, and I will be there as soon as I can. Well, the percentage finally gets to 100 after about 15 minutes, and then it restarts. And he says, oh, sometimes with PCs, you got to restart before you can, shut down again, because it's just reinstalling whatever it downloaded, etc. So it restarts the way it's supposed to. And then he says, okay, well, here you go. I'm going to shut down. Shuts down, and it's downloading another update. And at this point, I'm 25 minutes chilling in his office. The cat's nowhere to be seen. And my kids are sitting in the driveway of a random stranger's home. So I said, John, you know what? I have to go. We are going to dinner. We're going to eat, and we have plans. And he said, no, just like give it 10 more minutes. Can you give it 10 more minutes? I said, I can't. And he said, okay, well, I will make sure this all works. And if you want to pick it up tonight on your way back, you can, or tomorrow, you're welcome to. And I said, okay, I'll let you know. So my kids and my wife and I, we go to the mall. We have a great dinner. On the way back, I text him. I said, hey, can I pick up the computer? He says, sure. And I tell him I'm going to be there in about 25 minutes. I'm there. He's outside in like boxers, holding up a PC and ready for me to take it. Super weird. Just okay. So I go home. I turn on the computer. It fires up. Everything's seemingly good. I go to battle.net, which is a website to download one of the games that Keone and I play together, and it shuts down. It just shuts down like again. I log back in, I power up the computer, I log back into Windows. It's getting me further than when it used to restart over and over again before. But as soon as I started doing something like going on the internet to download something or trying to get access to, my email inbox, it just shuts down again. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to turn it on again and just leave it be and see what happens. So I turn it on. I don't touch anything. And all of a sudden, I start to hear a clanking noise every 10 seconds. Clink, clink, like metal on metal inside of the box that I have, my PC. And I have no idea what's going on. I'm like, is this thing going to explode? What is happening? And I look down into the box to see what's making this noise. And it's the fan at the top. I could see it clinking as it hits something, but then it just stops, as if it's trying to go, but something gets in its way. So I jostle it a little bit, and all of a sudden, I hear the fan going. I haven't heard that noise in a couple years from this box. And I open a app on this computer that shows me a lot of the internals, like the cooling fans and the temperature of the motherboard and all that kind of stuff. And I see the temperature just start to dive bomb because the fan finally turned on. So I'm looking at my computer right now. I've downloaded 2 games, and it hasn't shut down. So moving it from my place to John's and then back seemed to have jostled something enough for me to hear the computer to a point where then I could jostle it a little bit more to get the fans to work. And now it's fine. So am I going to ask for a $125 refund from John? Probably not. But what a weird series of events that happened here at the end of the year. And I wanted to share this with you because sometimes, as frustrated as I was getting through this entire process, I could not get out of that house, it seemed like. And that cat was just purring at me like it was about to do something. And it was one of those cats that has like the flat nose, like the nose does not protrude. It was actually a pretty cute cat, but it was scaring me. But the reason I wanted to share this with you is because sometimes there's just stuff that you can't control, but you just kind of gotta go with the flow, jostle things a little bit, and then sometimes it just starts working again. And in whatever way you want to take that metaphor and incorporate it into your own life, you're welcome to. Or if anything, just maybe this was an entertaining story because it really was such an odd series of events that really took 2 years since I bought this computer, but most of it just happening in the past couple days. And yeah, the Yelp reviews didn't tell me about, going into his home. But at the same time, I also wanted to practice. I work in public, as many of you know, and one thing that I love to do is to experiment with different stories and how they might relate, right? And sometimes you don't know how a story may or may not make sense to an audience, especially until you tell that story. So there might be some better ways for me to shape this story. I often talk about something called a story bank. You can trust me, this went into the story bank last night before I picked up the computer. Because I knew whatever happened, it was just after the events at John's house, it was just really strange and worth talking about, or at least experimenting to see if this story would be worth telling, for example, on stage one day. And maybe I haven't nailed it yet, but I think there's something there. And sometimes you don't know that until you just share your story, right? It's almost as if you're sitting across from me from a coffee table at a coffee shop, and we're just chatting, you and me. And I'm just telling you about something random that happened yesterday. And you know what? Many of the stories that end up in my slide decks for webinars and on stage at presentations or in virtual summits that I attend are because these are stories I tell other people in my life, my wife, my friends, sometimes even my kids. And sometimes by only telling the story, can I hear it out loud and understand how it might or might not be relevant. So that's the real lesson here and why I wanted to share this, to force myself to tell a story that may or may not have actually been useful. But the idea that it could is worth the risk, for sure. And so I just want to encourage you to tell a story, something that happened, and see if there are any lessons that can come out of it, right? And I came up with one on the fly with you at the end there. You know, sometimes you might get frustrated with how things are. Things aren't working out the way you want them to. But sometimes you just got to keep trying and move things around a little bit. And it might just be a small little bump that changes everything. But if I were to just go back to what it was before, which was just leaving the computer under the desk and not even trying, well, I wouldn't have been able to start playing games with my son today. Thank you so much for listening to this. I appreciate you. And I look forward to serving you in the next episode of the SPI podcast. Till then, take care, tell great stories, and I look forward to the next one. Cheers. Thanks for listening to the Smart Passive Income podcast at smartpassiveincome.com. I'm your host, Pat Flynn. Our senior producer is David Grabowski. Our series producer is Paul Gregoris. And our executive producer is Matt Garland. Sound editing by Duncan Brown. The Smart Passive Income podcast is a production of SPI Media. We'll catch you in the next session. Have you dreamt about being your own boss, but still haven't made the first steps to making that dream a reality? Well, I get that. Starting a business can feel super overwhelming with legal forms, paperwork, finances. It's a lot. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about Taylor Brands. Taylor is a complete business builder designed to make launching your business simple and stress-free. You can register your LLC in just minutes, keeping your personal assets and the business assets separate from day one. From there, you get access to everything you need to get off the ground. Legal documents, licenses and permits, invoicing and bookkeeping tools, and even a 100-day business coaching program, all designed to help you hit the ground running. You'll also get a free, personalized business plan, branding tools, and so much more. And of course, listeners of this show get an exclusive 35% discount to get started. All you have to do is head to taylorbrands.com/SPI. That's TAILORBRANDS.com/SPI. Stop dreaming, start building with Taylor Brands. Hey, fellow podcaster, does this sound like something you've experienced? Record your podcast episode on one platform, download the files, edit in another app, then fire up a different tool just to create these social clips? Well, it can be clunky, time-consuming, and frankly overwhelming, especially for creators trying to grow. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about Riverside. Riverside is the all-in-one platform. Record, edit, and repurpose your podcast content all in one place. You just log in, record with your guests no matter where you are in the world, and just like that, studio-quality audio and high-resolution video. We use Riverside here at SPI as well now. With built-in AI, I can automatically clean up my audio, saving myself so much editing time, and it can even auto-generate clips to make promoting the show a breeze. And with Magic Clips, I can grab the best moments and repurpose them as short-form video, perfect for YouTube Shorts, TikTok, or Instagram, without re-recording a thing. So if you're tired of juggling tools and want a faster, simpler way to create and scale your content, it's time to try Riverside, built by creators for creators. Just go to smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside and use code SMART to get 1 month free on the Pro plan. That's smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside, promo code SMART.